Hello, everybody. Today it's time for our Friday night Q&A chill hangout. Welcome to Art Prof. This is our global art community. So, Kat, we were just chatting about teaching and deadlines and bleh. How is all that artist stuff going? Because sometimes I feel like I just threw a bunch of knives in the air and now I have to catch them all.
It is going exactly the sound that you made. Blah. And especially since it's wrapping up towards the end of the year, as well as like the end of the semester, it also means a lot of deadlines for a bunch of other things. And so it feels like I'm on a race against time, trying to complete every single one. I'm trying to take it as it comes, though. How are you in that regard, Clara?
I was just telling Kat that I burned rubber all day today. I got up really early and I did intensive writing and proofreading to the max. And I'm very proud though, because that resulted in the release of our new ebook, which is the Essential MFA Portfolios Guide. And this is such a classic Clara thing to do where we sat down to write it and I'm like, oh, it's not going to take that long or we can wrap this up, right? And so I thought, oh, maybe it'll be like 50 pages, right? It's 151 pages. Like, why do I do this to myself?
It's compulsive behavior. I think everyone can see it now. You promise this much and you give so much more.
I think it's a compulsion. I can't not do it all the way. It's not an
uh, well, I hope that you find that balance soon where you're able to give your all and then sometimes take some time and some energy for yourself.
Whatever. I don't know. Do you have that compulsion that I have, or are you able to not do 150% and be okay? Or do you get super because I'm going in like lining up the pictures and the slideshow and making sure things are tweaked. It's sort of absurd, but it matters to me, even if nobody else can see it.
I think it's all about understanding where your priorities and your care lies in, because I do feel that way sometimes, but then I also understand that I'm just one person who can only handle so much. I actually was talking to you about this earlier, Clara, about how I was expending a lot of energy on like a certain situation at it was a certain teacher student situation basically, but you helped me reframe it by saying, with all this energy and time that you're expending in this one particular situation, it would be better spent with the other students who would actually benefit from that energy. And I was like, you're right. So sometimes you just need someone else to help reframe things.
Oh, yeah. Because I totally had been in so many situations where that happened, where I had a student who just really needed so much support, or in some circumstances, they were really attention seeking. And you do a disservice to the other students in the class when they miss out on their time with you.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's all about trying to keep it fair between everyone and equitable for everyone. And sometimes a lot of those boundaries are super gray. And a lot of the times, as well as the teacher, you have to call the shots on what needs to be upheld and when there can be, what is the word? Exceptions, when there can be exceptions.
So get your questions or comments for us in the chat. You guys can pick our brains for the next hour. We're happy to chat about just about anything. So Lisa says, I tried blind contour portraits to improve my sneaky public portrait sketches. I'm awful at them. What's a reasonable time to see improvement?
I can't say that I know if there's a set time for you to see improvement. I actually think it might be more helpful to set a material goal for yourself. Like, I will do 10 pages, or I will do maybe a whole sketchbook over the course of a month or several months, and then look back on your progress. Because I think a lot of that improvement is happening. You just cannot sense it because it's so incremental. But once you just have a body of work, you're able to see that evolution. What about you, Clara? Do you have a recommendation in terms of reasonable time or other advice?
I guess it depends on what your goal is ultimately, because blind contour portraits can serve different purposes. I know for me in the past, I've done them with staff, like me and Deepti did a stream on them, and we were just cracking up the whole time and going, look at these dumb drawings we're doing. And it was more a have fun, loosen up, do anything. And we weren't trying to look for improvement or to train our eyes or anything like that. But if you're looking for improvement drawing portraits on site, I think you have to do it for a long time. I don't know. I just feel like improvement is so hard to see. Like, I don't see a lot of improvement in myself that often. I guess once in a while, but it's not common. I mean, do you see visible progress or improvement in your work that often?
I think a lot of visible improvement is over the course of many years. I've actually done a comic in my school day years, and then what was it, like many years later, like I had graduated and have been years, I actually redid that comic. And it was so much time that was between these two moments that I could actually see improvement. But maybe another way you could see improvement immediately is when you learn a new tool. I think once you start from not knowing a tool to knowing the tool, it's such a huge leap of growth. It's very gratifying. Sorry?
It is.
Yeah,
It's so much more visible. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, so I really enjoy a lot of beginner and fundamental classes, like teaching them, because those are the classes where I do see the most visible instantaneous growth. And it's so gratifying every single time. I think with more advanced classes, that growth is a lot harder to see because it's incremental and it's going in so many different directions. But that's also why it's rewarding to teach those classes too.
Kat, I am drawing you right now. Blind contour. So Sonnet is asking, don't do that. Sonnet is asking what it is. Can you describe what is involved with a blind contour?
Blind contour drawing is when you're not looking at your paper and you're drawing something that you see. And also another key word is contour. A lot of the times you're trying to get the outline of everything. You're not so focused on getting form and light and shadow. It's really a line drawing. What did you make me look like? What am I, an Egon Schiele portrait? What's this?
See, I drew your chair has all these wrinkles in it. So basically, Sonnet, you sketch somebody, but you don't look at your paper. And so it's a lesson in observation in that you're sort of like really training your eye, but not being distracted by what's actually happening on the page.
Well, that's pretty impressive. I feel like you got the shape of my head pretty well and my neck.
Really? You have a tiny neck.
Well, do you guys see like the apples of my cheeks and you got my chin pretty well? Like, that's nice.
I guess.
I'm trying to throw you a bone here. Please accept it.
Okay, we have a question from Neil. What are some ways to have fun with art again? Maybe prompts or supplies. I've been feeling sad for a while and I need a pick-me-up.
You know, I actually feel that when I feel that way, I usually pivot to an entirely different medium just to pick it up. And it doesn't have to be a traditional art making medium like painting or drawing or sculpting, but it could be knitting and crocheting, sewing, embroidery. I'm thinking of a lot of textile stuff right now. What else is there? Wood carving, lino cut carving.
That's not fun.
Wait, it's not fun?
It's hard. Every time I do woodcut, I like it, but it's like really exhausting.
Maybe that's just what you need to get out of the funk, which is disrupt your rhythm. Do something new.
That's true.
What about you, Clara? What do you do?
I don't have fun, Kat.
That's true. As we were saying in the very beginning of the stream, you do 150% of everything.
I know. It's out of control. I need to do like 105%. Anyway.
Aim for 70.
Okay. Neil, Jordan has told me that he just defaults to doing fan art. He'll just draw some Spider-Man fan art, and that's really fun. So I think sometimes something that you've done before can actually be really nice. If there's a particular technique or material that you're like, oh, I know this material really well, sometimes that takes the pressure off. I mean, I do like picking up some random supply and going, yeah, whatever, I'm not good at this. It's fine. I have all the excuses for this to look crappy. But sometimes it just feels good to do things. So for me, I guess I would just default to making a portrait because I love portraits and it doesn't matter how bad it is. I just always find it engaging. So finding the thing that is fun no matter what, even if it's something you've already done a million times. We have a question. And by the way, everybody, get your questions into the chat. We are happy to give you advice or feedback about anything. So June is asking suggestions for drawing from real life plein air in the evening when it's too dark to see detail.
I've done this before. I think what's really fun about doing that is that it's almost like blind contour drawing, and that it's really hard to see what you're putting down on paper, the colors you're mixing, the minute details of it. But I think like just from what you can glean from what little light there is, you are able to see value on your page. And then when you go back into a well-lit environment and you look at your painting and you're like, wow, I just used pure ultramarine blue there. I had no idea. I think a lot of it is just embracing the spontaneity of it as well. I find that that can create some of the best works of art. Sometimes people get caught up in formulaic ways of making art, like I see red, I'm going to put down red. But when it comes to plein air evening drawing, you just need to get the essence of something, the shape of something, the value of something, the light of something. And then your choice of colors can surprise you later. The other thing I would suggest is dress warmly, because when you draw in plein air, you're just sitting still, so you get very cold. So just prepare in that sense.
I would say that it's sometimes helpful to say, you know what, I'm not going to do detail. I'm just not going to go there. Because number one, you never know. And number two, if I'm drawing in the evening, I feel like at that point, it's more about conveying an atmosphere or a feeling. And I don't need to identify, oh, that's a post box or mailbox. I don't know how to talk. Oh, that's a stool there. That's a blade of grass, whatever. I don't think that stuff really matters so much. The other thing is that in general, anytime I've done plein air, I just have zero expectations because you don't know what's going to happen. It'll start raining or a bug will be on your drawing or something dumb like that. And so for me, I never expect detail because I always know I'm not going to have time to do it. Do you go into it thinking something similar, Kat, or not?
Oh yeah, for sure. Actually, we did do a series of tutorial videos about this when we traveled to Portugal. And we were talking about drawing in plein air. A lot of the times it's just spontaneous. Again, you don't control that environment. Anything could happen. It could rain. You could run out of a certain color and you have nowhere else. You don't have a convenient art studio to go to get more of that color. Or there could be a heck or what?
You're hungry.
You're hungry. A lot of these are very like human needs. But another one, which is like a big thing for drawing in plein air, is heckling. I think a lot of like when you draw in a public space, it is almost a bit of a performance. You're doing something out of the norm. So inevitably you get people who like comment and stuff. One time I was actually painting in plein air and it was cold. I had a hood on. I wasn't like looking around. I was also trying to mind my own business. And somebody came up to me and was like, "Are you drawing?" And
I've seen that face before.
Yeah, I didn't even respond. I was like, yeah. Yeah, I'm drawing. Yeah.
Ryan is asking, what about drawing upside down? Similar concept to blind drawing as far as concentrating on shapes. I have drawing on the right side of the brain, but I haven't read it. Is that drawing upside down? Is that from that book, Ryan? Because I've never actually really read that book before. I know what the book is. Drawing upside down, I guess, does that mean I have to be upside down? Because I don't want to do that.
That sounds so physically uncomfortable, but I guess so. But I kind of, I mean, I get it. I think a big thing I tell people when I teach how to draw is abstract whatever you're seeing. So when you're drawing a portrait, don't see like a person necessarily, but look at shapes and light and shadow and planes. Because I think a lot of people get caught up on the fact that, oh, this is a person who looks a certain way. I want to get that likeness. But then they forget the infrastructure that makes up this subject, which is like the bony landmarks, the muscles, the areas of fat, right? How the eyes like are sockets in your head. People forget infrastructure and get caught up with the literal and what they see. So I kind of get what Ryan's talking about, drawing upside down, sort of abstracting forms. What about you, Clara? Do you also teach a similar lesson?
I definitely do for portraiture, because what I see with a lot of portraits is most people, unless they've had a lot of instruction, will just go eyes, nose, and mouth. That's always the first thing that people go to, understandably so. Those are the most visible features when we think about a face. But if you think about it, the eyes, nose, and mouth, they're not that critical in the beginning. I said, listen, you need a head, neck and shoulder. You need those things before you can even get into the lips or anything like that. And so I really push people trying to see the structure underneath, very simple shapes. I think sometimes people don't want to do that because when you're drawing things really simply, people will say, oh, it looks like a kid drew this. I'm like, it has to look that way. It has to start like a big, very unclear blob. I mean, it's not going to be like, boom, face. It doesn't work that way. So I think you have to be okay making drawings that, for a lot of people, feel childish.
Ooh,
we have a... Oh, sorry.
You want to read it? Well, I wanted to say we have a super sticker. Yeah.
Oh, I was getting to that. You disrupted my flow. Anyway, let's say thank you to Sonnet for the super sticker. We so much appreciate your support. Those super chats really make a difference for us, everybody. So keep them coming, because the thing that I think a lot of artists are grappling right now in arts organizations is, at least in the US, people are very worried about the upcoming year and about arts funding being cut. And I know that there's even some art schools that are having some financial problems as well. So I'm hoping that we can maybe step in a little bit to fill some of those gaps, because I think we are in a unique place where we do have structures set up for people to get quite a bit of instruction without paying $85,000 a year. We're just a little bit cheaper than that. So yes, but we are also very free. There's a lot of free things you can do with us without paying a dime. Okay, we have a question from Brandon, who says, I have a hard time getting into art history, just not sure where to get started. Do you have any tips on where to get started, or how studying art history has helped improve your art? All right, so Kat, you tackle the first part, which is how to get started.
Ooh, okay. So just start with something you like. For instance, maybe you're interested in a certain textile pattern, and then you start to pick at that thread. And ultimately, when you pick at that thread and you start to research and do more work and understanding that, it unravels into something that becomes larger and larger and larger. I mean, art history is so huge. It's gigantic. There's no way you're going to get a comprehensive knowledge of all of the world's art history possible. No way. So the best thing that you can do is to find your own specialties and your own specific set of tastes. Another thing that you could actually do is going to an art museum and say, hey, I really like that. And then just find out a little bit more about it. So who the artist was, what was the time period it came from, what was the country of origin. And then that's sort of how you get into research, which is you have to dive into a rabbit hole and you start to unravel more and more facts. And ultimately, you'll come out much better informed on art history, but on your terms. Clara, do you have more to add on that, or do you want to tackle the second part of that question?
Well, this is a suggestion that we make, and we do have a stream, Brandon, called How to Get Started Learning Art History. So this is actually in that slideshow. But I say work backwards. So for example, let's say you really like Giger's drawings and you want to know who inspired Giger, because Ernest Fuchs was an earlier artist. You can definitely see the similarities, but you know something, Fuchs was actually referring to this Hellenistic Greek sculpture called Laocoon and His Sons. And so if you're a Giger fan, we somehow got you to an Hellenistic Greek sculpture. So I think for me, sometimes seeing those connections instead of just doing, oh, let's do a timeline, I think that's sometimes really boring and tedious. But most artists, if you look them up, will say, oh, this is an artist who really influenced me. So if you can find your favorite artist, find out who they're inspired by, and just move yourself back, that can oftentimes be a good way to get started. Okay, let's go on to ASMR Ronald. Any advice for first-time art teachers? I've done one-on-one, but might teach groups next year. I'm nervous about channeling the group's energy. Any concrete strategies you find reliable? If you can follow up and tell us what age group, that makes a really big difference when it comes to giving teaching strategies. So do that and we will come back to your question. All right, so Tolly wants to know from Kat, if you wanted to get an audience for a comic story, how would you go about it?
Ooh, okay, that's a great question. I think the key is being able to build a following and being able to put yourself out there so that you're more available for more eyes to see your work. I think a lot of the times people think, oh, if I want to be a comics artist, then I will just make a comic, publish it, and boom, then people will read it and I'll gain a following and a readership and blah, blah, blah. And I mean, that's possible. That's totally possible. But at that point, when you publish the book, there's not a lot of publicity around it. So really, any publicity and gaining an audience for your comic starts before. So you want to be posting about your process, any behind the scenes images, any sketches, any illustrations. Really, you just want to get yourself out there as much as possible. I have a great case example for you. So there is a comics artist named Ngozi Ukazu. First name is spelled Ngozi, and Ukazu. When you Google, you'll find her. She made the webtoon called Check Please. And I think she did the really ingenious thing of, first of all, making everything online for free, like Art Prof. But she started to disseminate this material onto many media platforms. So back when it was called Twitter, she made a Twitter account posing as one of the characters who would like regularly put out tweets as if they were in this like fictional high school, etc. She made a Tumblr blog. I don't think Instagram was a big thing back then. But anyway, she went on all the social media platforms that she could be on, and she publicized her comic everywhere, to the point where even though it was free and available to read, a publisher still picked her up and published it in a hard copy format because it was proven to have a readership. But that was all work in order to get that audience. I hope that answered your question.
I can tell you guys, we're seeing more and more people skipping the traditional route to publishing or films or anything like that, putting it out there and then getting hired or getting the book deal because, like Kat said, they had a proven audience. I read about somebody who self-published a book and it did extremely well, and then she got a book deal with like Simon and Schuster. And so that's a way you can really take things into your own hands, because I know for me, one of my struggles in academia is I always felt like I was groveling for people's approval to let them say, yes, Clara, you can do this thing. But they never said yes. So I got tired of waiting around. I was like, I'm going to just put it out there. Because you know something, your audience may not be who you think they are. Certainly, you have a gist of who you're trying to reach. But Kat, as art prof, has developed this audience we have right now, it was not what I anticipated remotely, which I love. But it takes time to figure that out.
Yeah, I mean, when art prof first started, it was all stiff and formal, and we thought we would get like a very academic audience, but in fact, it was a gift that kept giving. By nature of the giving nature of art prof, it became diverse, it became equitable, it became a platform with so many different kinds of people and stories that we could have never imagined. And I'm all the more grateful for it. It is what it is now.
Speaking of academia, I've been teasing this a little bit to people because, Kat, you're one of my former students. And so you know my little Jekyll and Hyde thing I have going. And so I've actually been thinking, I think it might be kind of funny for you guys to see my Dr. Jekyll side from academia. Even though art prof is about none of that gatekeeping, but I was like, that'd be kind of funny. I mean, do you guys want to see the academic?
I mean, I would. I kind of miss her.
You already met her.
Yeah, I miss her.
You miss her? Why?
Well, I think it was just such an interesting framework for a class because, I mean, right now we kind of know you as Clara Lieu. Clara, the person who is warm and bubbly and silly, but incredibly knowledgeable and giving. But as Professor Lieu, you were like what do you call it? A drill sergeant.
Everything was on purpose, Kat. Yeah. I never made anything an accident in those classrooms.
Like you were still incredibly giving and kind and sincere. And it was very clear that you cared about every single student. But you also wanted to hold us accountable for, first of all, how difficult the world would be. And second of all, how we need to respond to it. And so I felt like it was very, how do we say it? Empowering as well, because you were teaching us how to like be creative and follow our dreams, but also to be very realistic.
But I think the empowering part is hugely important as a teacher. I want students to take my class and feel I have the skills, I can do it, because fundamentally you could have all the skills in the world, but if you don't feel empowered, that's a huge block to really realizing your full potential. And a big part of that was kicking your butt quite a bit. Yeah. So let me know in the chat who here would like to see RISD Prof, Dr. Jekyll Prof.
I mean, to add on that, I felt after having done your class, I could do anything. That's how difficult your class was. But again, it felt empowering because I was like, if I could do Clara's class, I can pitch my own graphic novel. I can apply to all of these jobs. I can hit that deadline. And maybe, just maybe, I can also have a social life.
I'm no help with that. If you want advice on how to have a healthy social life, go talk to somebody else. Okay, we have a question from Amaris. I'm trying to build a portfolio from scratch for my comic and one for my fashion illustration. Any advice? Could you follow up, Amaris, and tell us where those portfolios are going to go? Because I find oftentimes people say, I want to make a portfolio for this, but they haven't really thought through who's going to be looking at that portfolio. Because you could say, I'm an illustrator and I'm going to try to get hired doing editorial illustrations. So let's say I want to talk to an art director who works at the New York Times. But you're also an illustrator, Kat, and you're not talking to people that work at newspapers. Who are you talking to? Even though, same thing, portfolio for illustration.
Right. I actually am usually talking to either publishers or other teachers. So academia, basically. And those don't have to be mutually exclusive, but I would have such a different portfolio if it was editorial. Because if it is editorial, for instance, it's all about being succinct. Can you tell a lot in just a very simple one off image? But when it comes to a comic portfolio, that's when you actually have to show sequential artwork. So you have to be showing a lot more and you're telling a lot more with a lot more. So by nature of the different genres of illustration, your portfolio will also look different. So yes, please let us know who these portfolios are meant for.
Okay, so
Oh,
Amaris is following up saying, me applying for jobs. Okay, so you have to get more specific because every job is different. And I have sent out my portfolio in the past. It is a different portfolio depending on who I'm sending it to. Like I sent a bunch to some Broadway publicity agencies, and that's a very different portfolio than an advertising agency, which would use my work in a very different context. So here's a general piece of advice about portfolios. If you don't know who's actually going to be seeing it, in what industry, in what type of organization, it means that you haven't done enough research on the industry itself. Because actually, Kat, one thing that I really thought about very deliberately in the MFA portfolio was to explain that actually you have to spend a lot of time researching the actual industry. I realize that a lot of people I talk to, they don't even know what the life of an editorial illustrator looks like. And I explain that one of the things that's a big difference is lifestyle. I mean, if you want to be a freelancer, that's a very different lifestyle than getting a monthly paycheck from a teaching job. And so a lot of the times when people ask us questions about portfolios and stuff like that, a lot of the times I realize pretty quickly that they haven't done the research on the industry. Now, I'm not saying that's the case for you, Amaris. Obviously, I haven't gotten the full picture. But Kat, have you seen that ever? That sometimes we don't really know what the industry is.
yeah, I have seen it. And I just think that a lot of people are unable to look that far into the future. They think, oh, well, I am me right now, and I want to just do the next step, whatever that next step might be. And for a lot of students, honestly, especially when it comes to post uh, undergrad education, a lot of people think, oh, well, the natural course is to get a master's. I have to go to grad school immediately after undergrad school. But that's not the best path for everyone. And I think it's because a lot of people don't know what they'll do after that next step. So it's good to have a long-term plan. Not to say that it will go as planned, but it's good to just know what's out there before committing to something.
Well, that's a piece of advice that I give to anyone who's applying for anything anywhere. You have to really know what is that life actually like. And the only way you can really know is to talk to a person. You can read all you want online, but I can tell you most of it's all wrong. I mean, people come to us asking for help with the MFA portfolios, and they say, well, isn't this? I'm like, no. And I'm like, where did you get that? They're like, I read it online. I'm like, no, don't listen to any of that. And so sometimes I meet people who are just barking up the wrong tree because they had the wrong information. And the other thing is that fields change. I mean, Kat, I had professors who were freelance illustrators in the 80s. It's very different now.
Oh, yeah, it's so different. I think the other thing is, you said something about barking up the wrong tree. Oh, yes. When you research, you have to look at different resources. So not only looking up the things you read online, not only looking at like trajectories and information and statistics, Glassdoor, right? Glassdoor.com, but also talking to somebody. So making sure you but even if you talk to somebody, someone could be really biased
Oh, they
and paint
could.
you a picture that's totally informed by their own empirical way of seeing things. So get a diverse number of opinions, and then you do the distillation.
Sonnet is asking, have you ever discovered something about yourselves through the art you've created? I feel like when I start my art back up again, there's something there beneath the surface to discover about myself.
Sonnet, absolutely. I feel like every single artwork is me trying to tell myself something at the end. I tell a lot of people that I'm as much of a viewer of my own work as anyone else is. Because when I make something, I unconsciously put a lot of hints, a lot of messages, a lot of subliminal messaging and memories in the artwork I've done that I only unearth and understand way into the future. I think a classic example that I actually use is a comic I made back in the day for my roommate about a girl who is Mexican American who goes to live with her abuelita for the first time in many years. And this was a comic meant for my roommate, Sammy, who would tell me these beautiful stories about growing up in San Diego and Mexico. And I was like, oh, I kind of want to make that into a comic. So I made a short comic for her, basically. But then I read it years and years later, and I was like, oh my gosh, I actually made a comic about diaspora and feeling lost and all these things that I realized that I was trying to tell myself that I was feeling a certain way.
That's deep. I don't think I could compete with that. Oh my gosh. I think for me, it's more learning about myself as an artist. I am one of those people, I really don't like looking into my past. It's just not my cup of tea. I know some artists have done extraordinary work with that, doing graphic novels that are like memoirs. I mean, some of them are really extraordinary, but that's like not how I like to work. And what I do like seeing, though, is realizing things about myself. For example, for a very long time, I really did not like color. And I did not do color on purpose for a very long time. But then I started doing those bread fairy drawings, which have to be in color. I mean, those cannot be black and white because of the way the images are. And I remember that discovery going, oh, I have a reason to like color now. That was a nice little realization. Or if I'm painting and I realize, oh, wow, I hate canvas. This is much better. So for me, I sort of think about it like that. Maybe there's something deep in there personally, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just not thinking about it.
Clara, what was that piece that you did recently that you realized was such a callback to the geriatric portrait series that you had done before?
Oh, gosh, I totally cannot remember. Which piece are you talking about? The Fumage piece or something else?
Yeah, it's definitely the Fumage piece. I think that you did that Fumage piece like years and years and years after like the really fragile, really delicate portraits of older people. And then you did the Fumage piece and you just did it because you're like, this is cool. I kind of just want to do it. But then after having done it, you actually put it side by side in an Instagram post or somewhere. And when I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, that's such a liaison. Like you're using all of these really delicate, really fragile materials to create a lot of psychological portraits of, I don't know, an inner person, basically.
Well, that's deep. Can you write my artist statement? I love it. Okay. We have a question from Brandon about drawing every day. I know a lot of artists advise to not feel pressured to draw every day, but will it stunt my growth if I just genuinely like to draw every day?
Do whatever you think feels right, Brandon. For some people, drawing periodically helps. But for other people, a very rigorous regimen of drawing every day also works. Maybe I'll give an example. Just different people suit different methodologies. My partner is someone who takes something like little by little every day and eventually culminates into him finishing something, whether it's like eating a snack or reading a book. Like he'll read a couple of pages and put it down and say, I'm going to continue tomorrow. And then the next day he reads like 5 pages and then puts it down. It's like, okay, I'm going to read more tomorrow. I was like, how do you even do that? Me neither. Like we're watching a Netflix series and we watch one 30-minute episode. And then he's like, wow, that was crazy. Okay, time for bed. I'm like, are you
No!
kidding me? We're not going to watch the second episode?
Come on, binge!
Yeah, exactly, binge. But like that's how my partner functions. Whereas me, I'm the complete opposite. I have to get it all done at once, immediately. And so I binge. I binge in a lot of ways. I binge watching a series. I binge reading a book. I also binge when drawing. I just draw straight for a shorter period of time, but very intensely, which is just so different from how my partner functions. So just knowing how you function will ultimately be the best way you learn as well. Clara, do you also have tips on this?
I wouldn't worry about the growth because as we talked to people earlier about improvement, I think when you get really fixated on seeing improvement or worrying, am I not doing enough or stuff like that, to me, that just says you're not thinking about the drawing. You're worrying about things that are taking your time away and stunting your growth. I don't know that that's really something we can do to ourselves. I mean, I've never thought about myself as stunting my growth as much as I've thought, oh man, I need to do more work or I should have spent more time. I mean, like that type of thing, I think. But stunting your growth, I mean, if you're fixated on that, it's not going to help you draw better. It's just going to be a distraction. And sometimes we are our own worst enemies. We have Neil, who says, I try drawing every day, but I failed every time I try. I guess I just don't try enough.
What does it mean to fail? I don't think drawing makes you fail. You drew. Isn't that like a celebration in itself?
I'm
it
like,
doesn't matter. Yeah,
I
was like, wow, incredible.
You guys, I drew. I'm amazing.
I think it just goes back to the really wonderful point that Clara pointed out, which is don't be caught up in being worried about growth and failure and success, whatever success is even defined by. It's just you do what you can, and doing something is already warranting celebration for being active.
I posted a reel about this the other day, but when I taught at RISD, honestly, the only thing I really cared about was that somebody tried. To me, it is the biggest bummer when people come to class and they're apathetic and they don't try. Now, if you try really hard and you make something that does not look good, I'm not going to penalize you for that. I'm going to be happy that you made an effort. And in fact, I had this one student a long time ago who was not very skilled and wasn't very good at doing a lot of projects, never finished anything, was very slow. But he was so funny in class, a total chatterbox. And he just didn't care that his work looked like that. He was there to have a good time and to try. To me, I thought that was awesome. Now, some people might say, oh, God, isn't that bad that his... I'm like, no, it's fine. But the try hard enough thing, it's like you're just doing the best you can. I think most people are just doing the best they can. I'm not just talking about being an artist, but life in general. I mean, I think about as a parent, I'm trying the best I can. It doesn't always work. In fact, most of the time it doesn't work and I get told, but I think my kids know I'm trying, even though I mess up plenty. Tolly says, if I want to create a comic challenge for world building my story, how would you keep yourself going and not be burned out? This is for you, Kat.
Create a challenge for world building and how do you not get burned out? I think, okay, I'm going to address this in a way, hopefully it answers both parts of that question. Do a short comic and finish it. I think that there's a lot of skill in finishing something, and I don't think a lot of people realize that. So when people think, oh, I want to do a whole comic, it's going to be an immersive world, so many cultures, so many people, so many visual motifs, people get burned out because that's an enormous challenge. And you've kind of started, what is it called? Like I don't run. You're starting a marathon without warming up or training beforehand. So basically, do a short comic and see if you can finish it first. And then from then on, do something a little bit longer, and then something more, and then incorporate more, and maybe even build off of one of your shorter stories. But the first thing you need to do is finish something. And even in, what is it, like a 1 to 5 page comic, you would be surprised how much world building you can squeeze in there. First of all, who are these people? What are their cultural identities? What kind of clothing are they wearing? What kind of rooms do they inhabit? What kind of food do they eat?
Very important.
What sort of creature designs exist in this setting? Or what kind of robots or mechanics exist in this setting? So even in a 1 to 5 page comic, I wouldn't even argue, even in a comic of a couple panels, you can be able to build a world. But the key thing here is that you should learn how to finish a comic.
Well, one common thing that's popping up during today's stream is the word challenge and everyday. I know that there's a lot of stuff like that online, monthly challenges, Inktober and stuff like that. But honestly, all I hear about is people talking about how those challenges make them feel bad about themselves. And so I wonder, Tali, if you just take away the word challenge and you say, I'm just going to start working on the world, I feel that I see people get very stressed out by stuff like that. Yeah, because Neil here says, I guess what I mean is I can't be consistent. I'm very much a go with the flow type of person. I'm super inconsistent. I mean, I never do anything consistently. It's really hard. I mean, do you do things really consistently, Kat?
I would love to, but no. Again, I think it's just knowing your own rhythm and patterns and the best way that you function and working to your strengths rather than trying to force yourself into a way of working or being a kind of person that you're not.
Sorry, I have to change my earbud. Give me 1 second, but we'll go to another question and you can answer while I fix my earbud thing. Okay. We also have a question from Ryan about using a, quote, proportional divider. I use one especially for portraits because I can't stand getting halfway through and then realizing the eye is 3 millimeters too low. Okay, well, Kat, let's see what your take is while I fix this thing.
Sounds good. I'll hold down the fort. I don't know what a proportional divider is. Like, is this some kind of ruler or some like tool? Maybe you can elaborate.
It's a thing that looks like this. It's sort of like imagine if this was pointy and that was pointy. So you kind of can go, okay, this to this, that to that.
It's very like scientific. Well,
I mean, it looks like something you would do science with. It's very precise.
I mean, I feel like, again, it's knowing how you work and the ways you function that help. I know there are some artists out there who are extremely exact, and I'm thinking more about linear perspective. People just want to draw the lines. They want to use a ruler. They want to make sure that everything is like to the millimeter correct. And that's a certain way of doing things. I find it to be kind of sterile, though, the fact that, oh, okay, there we go. Thank you, Clara. Like measuring everything to the millimeter for exact preciseness is, why don't you just take a picture at that point? If you want preciseness to that level, just take a picture. But here's the thing. When drawing proportion, that's really difficult. And I would see why you would want to use a proportional divider. And maybe that does help. But the method that I would use to draw proportion is making sure everything is relational. So for instance,
this is the best. See this? This is the best ruler, and it's free.
It's true. Yeah. So for instance, if you're drawing somebody, just looking at the whole shape of the head, where is the ear positioned? Based on where the ear is positioned, where do you think the eyebrow is positioned? Is it higher than the eyebrow, lower than the eyebrow, this far away from the eyebrow, or this far away from the eyebrow? Okay, now you got the eyebrow down. Now that the eyebrows are done, where's the nose? Where is the eyes? Where are the lips? Where are the bony landmarks? Where are the muscles? It's all a game of almost piecing together a puzzle. And once you start relating things to each other, not only will you get something that is correct, but you'll also get something that's cohesive. Like you'll be drawing everything together at once, and it'll just make for a more finished piece. Clara, do you have any tips on the proportional? Are your earbuds okay now?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
Cool.
I think that that stuff takes so freaking long to do that it is not worth it. I mean, even if it did get me really amazing results, which it never has, by the way, I was told to use them in graduate school and I just rolled my eyes the whole time. But this is a caliper, which is basically very similar to the divider. So what you guys can see is that this then is the same proportion to this. So that's why they're the two sides. The same thing with the caliper. But for me, the speed is so much more important. I mean, if I had to sit there and do that, gosh, a drawing would take me 6 hours, something that my eye could measure in a half an hour. So I find it very slow and not very fun, which for me is a big problem. We do have a question from June. Can you give pointers for trying photographic art? Can you be more specific, June? Are you talking about doing photography, like shooting photos, or are you talking about making art that looks photorealistic? So if you can follow up, we can answer. And Paul is asking, do you ever make art from plein air sketch that you have done as a reference? Okay, so what Paul is saying is, have you ever done a sketch from plein air and use that plein air sketch to draw from the way that you would draw from a reference photo?
Somewhat, not directly, but somewhat. So I draw a lot of antiques for my upcoming graphic novel, Nostalgia. And I think a really big visual challenge for that is how are you supposed to compose an image made up of so many little parts, so many objects, so many antiques? It gets really overwhelming. So what I do is I go draw in plein air. I go to an antique shop or I go to a space with eclectic objects and I try to distill it based on plein air sensibilities. So again, we were talking about plein air earlier with somebody saying, night plein air, but a lot of plein air is just getting the essence of something and not worrying about the details. So getting foreground, middle ground, background, shape, form, light and shadow, atmospheric perspective. All of these elements sort of combine into a space populated with objects, but not fully describing every single object. That really helps me then distill the illustrations I make for my comic. So a lot of those sensibilities and skills I do pick up through experience with plein air drawing. What about you, Clara? Have you done something in plein air and gone back into it, perhaps, or referred to a more finished artwork with it?
Not really. I guess I worry that it's just a Xerox of a Xerox and the image just degrades with every Xerox. I mean, that's just me. I know that Edgar Degas did tons of sketches of ballerinas and they eventually became oil paintings and things like that. So I think it certainly can be a good way to work. It's just not how I work, but definitely try it. I mean, if it's something that you think will help you, absolutely. Alexandria says, I finished my first indie published children's book. It feels amazing. Now that it's done, I feel so ready to take on another project. Finishing something is really empowering. Absolutely. I mean, as much as we do here push people to work on process and to be okay not finishing things, it does feel really freaking good. You always tell me, Kat, you like the feeling of being done, but you don't really like the making.
Yeah. Who was it? I think it was like a writer on the Breaking Bad show.
It was, yes.
Yeah, it's like, I don't like writing. I like having written,
Yeah.
which is like the same thing for my art. I don't like making art. I like having made art.
Yeah. And you know something, learning to finish something, it really is a skill. Because when I used to teach drawing classes, so much of the time, at least for the first half of the semester, 50% of the issue was that they stopped too soon and they didn't really go all the way. And so it usually would take at least a couple weeks until they had done something. I'd say, okay, this piece has stuff you can fix, but it's finished. And that's a very important moment when you realize that. I think for me, that was when I felt more professional, is when I had the ability to make something look finished, even if it was flawed. We also have George, great comment. The process is the important thing, not the result, especially on-site, plein air, definitely, for sure. Even if the blind contour doesn't look great to you, over time, it will help improve your other work. I mean, honestly, when I go to life drawing and there's a model posing, I don't care about the outcome. I just like drawing. Like, it's just fun to just look and move my charcoal around. And I don't really think about the result. And sometimes people will say, well, I did all these drawings and none of them look good. And yeah, it's nice to look back, but in that situation, it's not about the product. Is it for you? You've done plenty of figure drawing.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is just, how do you say, you get in the zone, was a flow state, I think people call it. Yeah, where you're just like, draw, 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 draw. Beeper went off, okay, new drawing, drawing, drawing. Beeper went off, all right, another one, another one. It's very therapeutic. And afterwards, I flip through my drawings, and if there are some good ones that I like, I'm like, okay, amazing. But if there aren't any, I'm sort of like, it's okay. The experience was nice. And I went out and drew live figure modeling. Not a lot of people take the onus to do that anyways, so I already feel accomplished.
So June's following up, shooting photos, working on composition and color and light. Well, neither of us are professional photographers. I've started doing quite a bit because of the reference photo collection. I want to have photos there that are high quality for you guys to work from. I shoot them a lot for reference photos. I know, Kat, you do that as well. But I guess my best advice is just shoot a lot of photos. Because I remember when I taught at RISD, I would require students to shoot their own reference photos. I cannot tell you how many kids would come in and they'd have 2 on the wall. And I'm like, oh, don't you have more? No. I'm like, you took 2 photos? You're not going to get good results. So, Kat, sometimes I think it's just a productivity thing, quantity at first.
Yeah, I agree. And I think a lot of people just don't understand the power of your phone. You can take so many pictures that are so good quality. And so when you tell somebody, oh, okay, I want you to take a reference photo of an apple, and then they come in with just one picture of an apple, I'm like, are you kidding me? This is an apple. You can control it. You can do so much with it. Light it from different points of views. Take it from different points of views. Get another apple of a different color. Bite into an apple. Shred an apple. Break it in half. There's so many. Yeah, make applesauce. Make apple pie. I don't know. There are just so many things you can do with reference photos, and a lot of them don't take that much effort. Like, for instance, you have an apple. Take it from an above point of view. That's already going to be such an amazing, so much information in that photo. And I think people just need to demonstrate it to them. People need to see and understand that something works that way, and then perhaps they will just mirror that behavior.
So my apologies to Ronald. I think your comment did get buried, so thank you for posting it again. Says, teaching undergraduates. Well, you started doing that fairly recently. It's been a couple of years now, teaching undergraduates. What would you give as advice for that age group?
That's a great question. And I think, Clara, you really helped support me when I first started teaching undergraduates as well. I think there are 2 things. One is that you need an absolutely foolproof syllabus.
It's the Constitution, it's for real.
Yeah, to the point where any sort of excuse a student can come up with, you can just point to the syllabus and say, it's over there. you have to do this procedure or blah, 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 whatever. So a foolproof syllabus, I might expand on that later. But the second thing I would recommend is just that students want to see that you are trying
They do.
at the end of the day, because you're never going to be the perfect teacher for every single person out there. But people can recognize if a teacher doesn't care about them or doesn't care about the curiosity, doesn't nurture their growth. People can sense that. And at the end of the day, if they just see that you're trying, that's already just, you're going to be a good teacher by nature of caring for your students.
I think it's very important for students to know when you don't know. That happened all the time where students would say, what about, I'm like, actually, I don't know. And so what I would usually say is, okay, I'll go look it up and I'll let you know. Or sometimes I'd say, you know what, I don't know, go talk to this person. The important thing is that you give them some answer, because actually I had a professor in art school and I asked them some technical questions about printmaking. This is exactly what she said. She went like this, I don't know. It's like, that's it? Like, no offer to like find out for me. And so you just have to be very communicative, and they will get it, that they usually can tell when somebody isn't like super, super experienced, and that's okay as well. You will make a lot of mistakes, but I think the important thing is just to be really upfront about things, because sometimes teachers will introduce new things middle of the semester and the students feel like betrayed. They're like, well, I thought I was needing to do this, and now you're introducing this whole other thing that we didn't know about. And so I think it is very important to be transparent with them about what they need to do, because they don't mind if you scale back. If you say, oh, I decided we're not going to do this lesson. But if you're like, oh, no, we're going to add this extra homework assignment, we're going to double your work this week, like that's when they get really mad.
Right. Before the stream ends, I also want for the asker of this question really fast. Clara, do you have any points to share about making a foolproof syllabus?
Oh, God, that's like 18 streams. But
it could be an ebook.
Well, you know what's important about the syllabus? Actually, don't make it too long. My syllabus was super lean, because I've read syllabi where it's just paragraphs. Like, who's going to read it? And of course, it is important that you have it. But I would just say any communication, and this is the same thing for teaching online, as sparse and simple as possible. That is what will get people to read it. If it's like super dense text, forget it. Nobody's going to read it. Remember, everybody, we have Art Club now available. We did combine the Patreon group and Open Studios. And so in Art Club, you get voice sessions to discuss things with staff. You get critiques from me, and you get Open Studio sessions, and there's no 3-1 critique rule. Check it out. The best way to subscribe is via our server shop in our Discord. We do not have Discord chats on Friday night hangouts, but you should definitely join, because that's where all the cool kids are hanging out. And, you know, we are still in high school, so we want to give some peer pressure to get you guys in there, because it's really fun and you'll get to meet a lot of cool people. Thank you so much to our incredible top Patreon supporters. We so appreciate things, especially in the landscape right now with a lot of arts organizations feeling nervous, at least in the US. Visit artprof.org for content that's not on YouTube. Use the search bar. Art Prof has a podcast. It's available on Spotify and also on iTunes. And Gumby would like for you to join our global art community. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.